Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. Um, we are here every day live at 10:30 in the morning to share news about things that are going on in the world near and far as they affect our livelihood here in Puerto Vallarta. Um, if you're new to these broadcasts, my name is Paco, and we get together every morning and share inspiration, knowledge, laughter, creativity, just to stay optimistic during these interesting times. If you're new to the broadcasts, please let us know by typing the word new in the comment section, and that way we will give you a proper welcome. If you're catching the broadcast in the afternoon, you will notice that there are a lot of show notes under each broadcast. This is because everything that we talk about, if you wish to pursue it or explore it further, you can do that afterwards. For those of us that are enjoying the broadcast live, I usually upload the show notes immediately after each broadcast is over. You can also find us on YouTube on the channel that I have, and you can find out about that channel in the show notes. So here we are. It is Thursday, May 21st. It is hot, it is humid, and the spring allergies are making me have a spectacular sneeze fest this morning. Um, but I want to very quickly take the time to say hello to everybody that is joining us, as we always do. Good morning, Darlene, Mihal, Craig, Maddie, Gail, Geoff, Kathleen, Karen, Cheryl, Blake, Daniela. Buenos dias, alegría. Good morning, Margaret. It's great to see you. Celeste, my favorite Shakespearean in town. Marge, it's great to see you. Marilyn, Mario. Um, Kathleen comments, started watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan piece on Netflix. I haven't started watching it, but I'm really eager to see it. Good morning, Colleen. I'm so happy to see each and every one of you. So, as usual, we're going to go through our headlines, and then we're going to um, we're going to go through the leisurely stuff, and then we're going to look at your comments. I see that Claude is sharing a report on an outing to a restaurant. This is great to know because, as you know, we are all about trying to support the local businesses as much as we can. We are going to start with our headlines because we have a few interesting things to cover. Ooh, I bet you were not expecting that. I had some fun yesterday getting some things polished here and there so that we can have a swanky experience at Coffee and Headlines. The first thing that I want to talk about is, or should be very important to those of you who are going through the process of opening or reopening your business and going through all the requisites that the government has put forth. The state of Jalisco, the governor has alerted about a number of people that are going on social media saying that they can help you with all the process of becoming certified. In Mexico, we have a word for those individuals. We call them coyotes or coyotes. And traditionally, whenever we've wanted to go and renew our license or our passport or have any kind of legal paperwork, there are these individuals or organizations that claim to expedite the process for us for a fee. Some of them are legal, some of them are not legal. In this particular case, excuse me, allergies. In this particular case, the governor of our state is warning against these kinds of individuals. Some organizations, including Canaco, I believe, have come forth saying, well, it's taking too long, please let us help you. And whereas some of those intentions may be legitimate, Some of those intentions may not. So the bottom line is, if you're going through the process of filling out the paperwork and following the guidelines required to open your business, please do this only through the legal channels as recommended by the government. I know that some of the, well, all the paperwork is in Spanish. Some of you may be struggling with that. There are official translators in the city that you can appeal to and you can lean on if it's necessary. But just be very careful with people that come to you promising that they will take care of this for you. They could be scams, and we don't want you getting into trouble because of things like that. Somebody mentioned yesterday this video that was up on social media about a couple that was arrested for going into the beach. I did run into the video yesterday, and it was not pretty to watch. But the authorities have come forth this morning saying that they acted according to the law. Apparently, these were not tourists; they were locals who had been drinking, and despite the fact that they had been alerted to not be on the beach, they did not follow the guidelines. And of course, the authorities had to do what they're supposed to do, which is take them away. You know, if they had been warned, this is what the outcome of that was. So I don't know if this has had positive or negative effect on our destination or people's opinion. All I know is what I'm reading, and what I'm reading is that the guidelines, the authorities were following the guidelines that they were expected to follow. The next item that I have has to do with long weekends. You may or may not know this, but a few months ago, the president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, decided against long weekends in Mexico, arguing that long weekends diminish the number of school days that students can attend to school, can go to school and take classes. And of course, this detonated a huge back and forth between the Secretary of Education and the Secretary of Tourism, both of them having very valid points, to the effect that it helps tourism when we have long weekends because of the large number of tourists that we receive, not only here in Puerto Vallarta, but in all tourist destinations throughout the country. Well, the short of it is that the Secretary of Tourism prevailed, and now long weekends are here to stay. Needless to say, the government is concerned about boosting our economy in whatever way possible. So long weekends are here to stay. Of course, this doesn't mean much in the near future because we don't have any long weekends coming up until the fall. But it is important to local economy, of course, when you consider that 60% of tourism that arrives from here in Puerto Vallarta is national tourism, and of that 60%, 40% comes from the city of Guadalajara. So even though we don't have to worry too much about this in the near future, it is good to know. It is good to know, at least from the point of view of the economy. Now, the next item is complicated, and I didn't particularly want to address this because it is a complicated story, but this has to do with the Botanical Gardens, and a couple of people reached out to me for comments yesterday, and I was going to dismiss it, but in the last 24 hours, 3 local sources have published news about this. If you remember, about 3 or 4 days ago, I reported that the company behind the hydroelectric plant in Rio Los Orcones, south of Puerto Vallarta, was spotted in Boca de Tomatlan distributing food baskets, which, one might question their motives, one might not. They were giving out food to residents of Boca de Tomatlan. This is not unusual because a lot of times political parties will do this kind of thing when it's time for election. We saw food baskets being distributed by the narco groups in all of Mexico, and they were distributing these boxes with a logo of the narco company. But what happened at Boca de Tomatlan is that apparently the hydroelectric people were there, and they were trying to distribute food. And according to three notes that I saw on online, people from the Botanical Garden were preventing this from happening. And I was a little concerned about this news item because I figured one thing is to have a certain feeling or opinion about the environment, and another thing is to prevent people from having access to food. And that's obviously something that we want to worry a lot about these days. So I reached out to Executive Director Neil Gerlosky at the Botanical Garden yesterday, only to discover that he hasn't been the Executive Director at the Botanical Garden since February. Then I reached out to Bob Price, who is being accused for a number of irregularities according to these articles. And in fact, there has been legal action against Bob Price in the Botanical Gardens for some months. This is not new. Um, and what Bob told me yesterday is that his staff was not there, and his staff would never be there to prevent people from receiving food. Um, the only thing that troubled me is that on the third source that I saw this morning, I noticed um, in one of the photographs, I saw a gentleman that I know by the name of Nick DeLorenzo. And Nick DeLorenzo is one of the members of the Botanical Gardens. Here we see him wearing his face mask, and he has been someone who in the past has organized at least one or two fundraising events for the Botanical Gardens. So I asked Bob, what was he doing there? Because it doesn't look good that you say that you have no involvement in this, and what was this gentleman doing there? And Bob explained to me that that Nick DeLorenzo is part of a neighborhood watch in that part of the city. Apparently, he lives in Boca de Tomatlan, and he was there just because he happened to be there. What I said to Bob after we had a brief conversation this morning is, I don't disbelieve what you're saying. All I say is that this doesn't look good. The turmoil between the hydroelectric and the local developer who's behind it and the Botanical Gardens is nothing new. It's been going on for a long time, and it is unfortunate because it's a complicated battle. Again, I am not one to feel comfortable about people destroying our natural resources, and have a lot of respect for what Bob Price and the Botanical Gardens have done. But at the same time, there's always two sides to the story. At some point or another, both sides of this argument have come forth indicating, in the case of the hydroelectric, that they are not damaging the environment, they're not drying up the river. And on the flip side, the Botanical Gardens, directly or indirectly, has come forth announcing that the damage to nature is quite considerable. So again, I don't know all the details. I just think it is unfortunate that all of this is happening and that it is being reported as it is. And I wish the best for all parties involved, and hopefully, this will come to a good resolution at some point. Um, if you're curious, you can read about Nancy Pelosi defending her remarks on President Trump's weight as a dose of his own medicine. I can tell you that this has to do with the fact that she expressed a few days ago that she was concerned about the fact that President Trump should not be taking the hydroxychloroquine medication because he is of a certain age and morbidly obese. Apparently, President Trump didn't enjoy those remarks very much. What I take out from it is the fact that it is unfortunate that uh, in the United States, the lack of leadership has led people from the private and public sector refer to the President of the United States in such an adverse way. I was watching Stephen Colbert last night, and I find Stephen Colbert very, very funny whenever I see him doing his show. But the level of mockery against President Trump is just sad. Sad from the point of view that if any leader loses the ability and the credibility to lead, will then allow himself or herself to mockery. And that's pretty much all I have for you for serious headlines. Let me take a quick look at your comments just to see your reactions. Sean likes my headlines thingy. Thank you very much. Logan liked it too. Well, we're trying to get a little bit legitimate here. Um, we have a new person, new Anna Gourlay, watching from Azilda. Oh my God, I don't know if I am saying this properly. Well, I see Claude, but I don't see Anna. Anna, oh, there's Anna. Oh, that's great to see you. Um, Paul adds that coyotes love to help English people and love to intimidate. No, loves los coyotes love to help English speaking people who are intimidated by the process and the language. Yes, they do, and there are a lot of people that make a living out of this. But again, things are very delicate here. It is recommended that you only follow the official channels. Um, Anna says hello again. How can Bob control what people do uh, who may be on the board? I I don't think Bob has any control. And of course, again, I'm not saying that Bob sent these people to stand there. All I'm saying is that it is unfortunate that these people were standing there and they were captured by a foot and by a camera. Um, Chris is late, no worries. Hello, Norma. Um, what's the rebuttal in the news sources? Again, all I am saying is what I'm reading and what I know. The whole, I mean, if you wanted to get into the whole story of the gardens and Fernando Gonzalez Corona, who owns Casa Blanca, and all the private and public interests involved, it's a long story. I have enough coffee. We could go there someday. Um, but I don't know that today is a good day to do that. Maybe one of these days we can get somebody from the hydroelectric to come and tell us about the project, and we can get Bob Price to come and tell us about his point of view. After all, there's always two sides to a story. Um, Bob told me this morning that the Gardens is out, will no longer oppose the project because the people who want to build this area are rich and are well connected, and it's a lost cause. This may be true. I don't doubt it. Just before I came online today, just before I came, we started this newscast, I took a quick look at Google Earth, which we all can do. All you have to do is go on your browser, go on Google Earth. If you point Google Earth to the land directly behind Garza Blanca in the South Shore, you will see that there's construction going on in the mountains in an area that is owned that is ejido land that by the book cannot be used for private construction, but somehow a certain number of people have obtained access to build on this land, destroying our forests. So, you pick the fights you can win, and then the fights that you cannot win, um, you have to know when to throw your flag up. Candace says we need all to stand up against this dam. Let's see the environmental studies and their plans made more public. I completely agree with you. Hopefully, they will continue to publish things that can show us both sides of the story. Bob Price is first and foremost an environmentalist, and I respect him too, Ellen. Um, but we all have ugly sides. That's all I'm going to say. We all have moments in which our bedside manner is not what it should be, and Bob is not excluded. I am not excluded. Nobody is excluded. Russell says hello. Yes, ask Bob. It is not Bob against the dam. It's the people against the dam. Yes, this is true. Any update on whether we can touch other... Oh, Cheryl, you crack me up. You crack me up. If you're going to be that way, then maybe it is time to get into leisurely stuff. Okay, if we're going to get into ball touching, I certainly hope that you guys had a chance to look at the YouTube clip that I shared yesterday where we saw some city official talking about touching balls or not touching balls. Well, I'm not going to answer that actually. Elena, I am so glad to see you because I want to know what's going on between you and your inspiration group, your Sunday group. Hopefully, you will fill us in. Elena Hayat Hulihan is joining us today. Um, and she is part of the Friendship Club. And Friendship Club has these series of meetings on Sundays. Well, they used to when they were able to meet. Now it is not possible for them to do so. But I know that she is in charge of setting up a number of very inspiring um, speakers. I know that because I've been one of those speakers. Please invite Bob onto your show to speak. He and the Botanical Gardens are jewels of PV. If Bob wishes to come on board, I will extend the invitation so that he can tell us what's going on. Um, I would also like to hear on both sides of the Orcones story, Gail, because I'm sure that there are two sides to that story. More people wanting Bob to come on the show. Good to know. We'll definitely set it up. um, on fire with the graphics. Well, I gotta keep you guys entertained, otherwise you'll stop watching, and we would never want that. I always want to make sure that you have something new to expect here. One more good morning, and I'm going to go back to my headlines because, as I mentioned, I have some leisurely stuff lined up for you. You may or may not remember that this year we celebrate, this is the 250th anniversary of Beethoven, and there have been a number of concerts and activities around the world related to Beethoven that, of course, have been canceled because of the pandemic. I was really excited to go to Guadalajara during the month of May for the May Festival, where my friends and I were going to go watch these performances by the Jalisco Philharmonic doing several of Beethoven's symphonies, and a piano player, I forget his name, was scheduled to come and play the entire Beethoven sonata cycle. And I understand that he's doing this online. I haven't checked the May Festival website in the last few days. But I wanted to show you this, which is really interesting. This has to do with John Eliot Gardiner. Now, John Eliot Gardiner is an acclaimed orchestra conductor, and his orchestra is very unique because what they use is period instruments. Let me explain this very briefly. The instruments, the musical instruments that we know today, have evolved through the years, technically and in terms of their audio properties, such that the kinds of instruments that were used in the time of Beethoven or Bach or any of the composers were slightly different. The piano for which Bach composed, Mozart composed, were not the same kind of pianos that we have today. Anyhow, John Eliot Gardiner and his orchestra was readying a series of concerts throughout the world in which he and his orchestra were to perform all of Beethoven's 9 symphonies. They were able to complete the cycle in a couple of cities, but not all of them. They were able to complete the cycle in 3 cities: Barcelona, New York, and Chicago. And they were followed by a documentary crew. And this crew is now releasing a 9-part series of the films where John Eliot Gardiner is giving his thoughts about Beethoven's musical mind. And these are available on YouTube or will be available every Friday. 2 of them have become available. Well, one became available, the one on Symphony Number 1, and the one on Symphony Number 2 is going to be available tomorrow. These should be really fascinating. If you pay attention to the sound of his orchestra, it's not going to be as grand as some of the other modern orchestras that we know. And this is just because that is the way the music was performed in Beethoven's time. I wish for you to take some time and look at these cycles and tell me what you think um, after you've watched. I also want to tell you that a few days ago, we took a look at Two Set Violin, this very funny duo of string players who make fun of classical music and classical music players. And I brought them to your attention because they had made a funny video about the violin's capabilities versus the recorder. And they got a lot of flack. We saw that video because 1 or 2 professional recorder players came forth and said, well, we're going to dispute their claims. Well, they realized that they were totally bashed and roasted by the classical recorder playing community. So they have responded to this, and it's really, really funny to watch. I'm going to leave the bookmark for this as well. Now, this is really exciting. Part of the series of plays that the National Theater has put forth, they've been spectacular. And today they premiere A Streetcar Named Desire with none other than Agent Scully on the lead. Yes, that is Gillian Anderson. This is going to premiere today. Um, Yes, today is May 21st. This is going to be available today, and for all I know, no, not yet, because there's a bunch of people waiting. This afternoon, you should be able to catch this. Tennessee Williams is A Streetcar Named Desire. It should be a fascinating production. And I see that Kathleen has been waiting for this. I'm sure you're not the only one. Um, on the feel good department, I want to share that we read that national parks in the United States have been thriving as far as animals just moving about in areas that used to be populated by tourists and such. And as much as we hate being locked up, there's a part of me that can't help but to feel rejoiced about the fact that Mother Nature is doing her thing and animals are out and about. Uh, Last but not least, I want to praise one of our own, Kathleen, uh, who owns Licks. She has a website, she has a blog, and I just love when I find that my friends are out there expressing themselves in ways that we would not expect. And Kathleen, aside from writing insightful bits about owning a business in Mexico, she gets personal. For example, there's a really beautiful article that she wrote about how she had her breast implants removed and what that was like for her. And of course, you're going to find some cute photographs on the website. I have to say they're cute and wonderful because I took those photographs. But this is not about me. It is just about how I get so excited about discovering unexpected sides of my friends. So I'm going to leave the link to Kathleen's website and blog. I invite you to read it. And of course, I invite you to let me know if you are doing interesting things with your own time, with your own lives. This is always something that we want to hear more about because that's what makes us interesting. That's what makes our community fascinating. It is hot and humid, as I mentioned earlier. It is 82 Fahrenheit, 28 Celsius, and humidity is up to 56% today. Yesterday we were at 40, and only a few days ago, we were at less than 20%. So we know that summer is coming up. And this is going to be, as I call, the interesting time to be out and about wearing face masks. So the better we behave now in terms of following guidelines, the sooner we will have our restrictions loosened up by the authorities. So brace yourselves. It's going to be an interesting summer. Of the things that I didn't report, I saw a number of news about driving theaters popping everywhere. So it's very likely that we're going to see this um, sometime in the near future. Let me take a look at some of your latest remarks regarding all these topics. Candace says, interview a Mexican environmentalist. Bob does not need to be the face of this fight because it's not his fight. I will be happy to do that. Cheryl gives us some insight on, on Beethoven. After he died, he began decomposing. That's lovely. I love it. Um, Love the young Vic. Great memories of seeing plays at the National Theater and a study abroad. That's good to know, Logan. Uh, Kathleen is giddy because we're sharing her blog. You would do the same thing for me. Yay for Mother Nature. Absolutely. Bill says hello. Um, Renee needs to try Licks. I totally think you should. They make awesome ice cream. Awesome ice cream. And now that it's getting warm, I really, really crave some ice cream. Um, You dig those heels into that boulder? Absolutely. Isn't that amazing? And what I like about that photo, as long as you brought it up, let me whip it up again if I can. What I like about that photo is that I've had the pleasure of knowing Kathleen now for a while. We've had a couple of good conversations. And I admire the courage and carefree way in which he poses for these photographs. And yes, it takes a lot of chutzpah to get up in those boulders and stand in those heels. But I like this photograph so very much. I don't know who took it, but to me, this photograph represents someone that is very sure of herself and that is ready to claim the world. And I just love that from anybody. Um, Kathleen delivers. Yes, Licks delivers. Keep that in mind, everybody, if you're starting to get the craving. Um, More thoughts on Bob Price. And again, we will do our best to bring Bob into the program. If he wants to come and join us, he's more than welcome to do that. Meanwhile, I want to let you know, I mentioned a couple of days ago that we would be having Richard Sarking from Riviera Nayarit to answer your questions about Nayarit. And Richard Sarking will be our special guest tomorrow morning. He is the Public Relations Director at Riviera Nayarit Conventions and Tourism Bureau. He may not have all the answers, but he's certainly much more knowledgeable about what's going on in our neighbor state than I am. So we'll be very, very happy to see him. As soon as I put up the notice for tomorrow's show, feel free to jot your questions so that we can have some questions for Richard that he can answer, or feel free to tune in tomorrow during the broadcast and post your questions in the comment section. Last comment of the day, a curtain rods across the shoulders, classic Carol Burnett, of course, and that was the intent. When I took those photographs at their requests, and I said to myself, well, I'm not entirely sure what's going on here, but I'm going to go with it as you go with the wind, and that is a pun. For those of you that get it, great. For those of you that don't, look for Carol Burnett on YouTube. She is absolutely amazing. She will make you laugh. She has her own channel, and sometimes when I need a good laugh, that's where I go. That's all I have for you today. As always, I thank you for your ongoing support. I thank you for coming back day after day with your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions. And I invite you to stay healthy, stay sane, stay happy, stay creative, and stay in touch. Have a great day.